Good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to see so many smiling faces. Yay! So, welcome to Who Knew? And today we have an exciting interview for you. Resident Barbara Chavatel is going to be interviewing resident Beck, and it's all going to be about the Queen and the Corgis. So we'll have time for questions after their talk. Did want to let you know that although we're not airing it live, we are recording today's interview, so you'll be able to see it on TV 970 a little bit later this month. So, enough from me. Let's turn it over to the real stars. All right.
Thank you, Whitney. It's an honor for me to do this today, and especially with Bev, because I think it's a very exciting story, a little different than some of the other Who News, but why not try something new? So that's what we're doing today. The year is 2017. That was the year that Beverly Beck moved to Westminster Canterbury. She settled in on the second floor of the courtyard with Rusty, I'm sure many of you know Rusty, and her beautiful cat, Alexandra. All three have become favorites on the second floor, and Bev has been very active here at WC and has been the successful leader of the Employee Christmas Fund, especially during the COVID years. It has turned out that Bev and I share a love of England. We're both terrible Anglophiles, you probably can tell. And we are very, very, very grateful for the leadership of the Queen all the many years, and that goes with everything that has to do with being an Anglophile. I was fortunate, along with others on our floor, to already view some of Bev's photographs and hear her talk about her visits to England, and her source, I guess her main goal is to find corgis in England, because that happens to be the favorite dog of the Queen. And so that's the reason why we're here today for Who Knew. So now I turn it over to Bev and the Queen and their shared love of corgis. Bev, how did you get so interested in the Queen, the most famous woman in the world?
Thank you, Barbara, and thanks everybody for being here. I hope you enjoy this. My love of the Queen started with this. This is Baron. He is a Pembroke Welsh Corgi. He was the reject of his litter. I had told a friend of mine that she had a 2-year-old Corgi that was given to her by a breeder because the Corgi did not show well. So I had said to her, she has another one that doesn't show well, I'll take her, you know. And so she calls me on the day that I moved into my first house in the afternoon, and she says, I think you need to come by the house. I have your Corgi. I'm thinking that I'm getting a 2-year-old Corgi. And she opens the door, and this little guy bounds out. So I was very excited about Baron. Baron was the pick of the litter. However, if you notice, you probably can't tell, but the breeder could. The breeder's one of the best breeders, for sure, in Richmond. In Virginia. But he was exactly what she wanted, except he had one little defect. He was a fluffy. And you need to know, this is a real story. Up until this point in time, fluffies were put down. If a breeder had a dog that looked like this, they put them down because they did not want other people to know that something had happened in the breeding line. So, but she said, when I talked to her a year later, she would not let me mention the dog's name to her, but she said it was the hardest day of my life because I thought I was going to put him down. And she said I could not do it, and that's why you have him. And so that's how I got Baron. And this is Baron as he grew up. He's stunning. He was in casting studio with the brides. This little dog came about 1.5 years or 2 years later. I got a phone call from a lady. I lived over in Claremont, nearby. And she said, I hear you like corgis. And I said, yes, I do. And she says, I got one I want you to find a home for. And I said, well, bring her over. So she brought her over. Her name is Nobbins. She brought her wrapped up in a towel, soaking wet. She had been outside in a kennel. The woman did not stay with her very much at all because she was dating this guy. She could not take the dog with her because the guy's dog tore this dog up. So she gave me the vet's name. I went to the vet, and the vet said, I've only seen this dog once, and that was to sew her up. And he said she had about 100 stitches. And so we never found out whether the dog had shots or anything. So we had to start from scratch with Nobbins, with her meds. So that's how I got Nobbins, and she stayed with me. She sort of thought she was queen of the roost, though. She didn't like it at first, and other dogs came near me. But she finally adjusted, and was a great dog. This is Wellington. When Barron died, I called the breeder where I got Barron, and I said, well, I like those fluffs. And she says, guess what? I've got one. And this dog's name was Cheddar. All the litter was called Cheddar, or some type of cheese. And so I said, well, she lived in Charlottesville. I hopped in the car with some friends of mine, and we went to Charlottesville, and we picked up who became Wellington. And this is Wellington, and he is very famous. So I'll tell you about that later. And this is Wellington and Biggs. Biggs was a puppy that I got 2 months after Wellington. And Biggs was another reject of the litter. He was not even with his litter when I went to see him because he was so ill. I think the breeder thought he was going to die. So she asked me if I wanted to try to take him and get him well. And I said, sure, I'll take him. So I took him. I am here to tell you that this dog became the pick of the litter. My vet worked on this dog for 2 weeks, and Biggs is perfect. There's not a thing wrong with him. People that I've met that were show dogs said, I'd give anything to take this dog in the ring. And I said, you can't. But Biggs was a wonderful corgi, but another dog that would have been put down probably because he was ill. Now, this is Biggs and Wellington's grown-up picture. Thought you'd like to see what they look like grown up. Now, after Wellington died, Wellington had a brain tumor, unfortunately. He even had an MRI. And so we decided that even though the brain tumor was not malignant, he would not have survived the brain tumor. So unfortunately, I had to put Wellington down. And so the breeder who bred Biggs, the little bitty dog, I called her and I said, okay, I'm looking for a 2-year-old corgi. And she gave me the names of these breeders. And she said, just tell them that you're Beverly and they'll tell you something. So I said, okay, I called the breeders and I told them all I was Beverly, and they said, your corgi, your Biggs, was the biggest mistake that breeder ever made, given to you. And I said, well, I'm looked out. Anyway, so then when I never could find a 2-year-old corgi, so I called back and I said, can't find a 2-year-old corgi. She said, I got one for you. And this is Lilybet. Lilybet's name for the queen. Well, Lilybet had what they call dry eyes. And she said, if you'll take this dog and take it to the doctor and give it its meds, eye drops and all that, it's yours. Well, I thought I'd go to heaven. This dog is precious. She was a pick of the litter for breeding. But she couldn't be bred because she had dry eyes. Well, I worked with Lilybet for about 6 months. Lilybet didn't have dry eyes anymore. But anyway, so I really lucked out on getting my corgis. This was my 5th corgi. And she was just she's a doll, no doubt about it. This is her and Biggs. So Biggs needed a buddy, so I got Lilybet. Now Biggs, in the first 3 weeks, thought he was an old man with a young woman. He thought she was the cutest thing he had ever seen. After 3 weeks, he'd look at me like, can you take her back? She was full of all this energy, and he didn't want that. Now this is the neat little story. This is Lilybet, and a lot of you in here know Alexandra or Alex. Well, I got this kitten. When Biggs died, I had to get Lilybet a little friend. So a friend of mine, my mother's as a matter of fact, said, why don't you get her a cat? I said, a cat? I'm not even a cat person. He said, get her a cat. Well, somebody gave me this little kitten. It was precious. And so I brought it home. Lily immediately decided she was her mother. I didn't have to do a thing with this cat. She washed her ears. She put her paw on top of her and told her not to move till she finished washing her face. This cat got to the point that she'd turn her head like, do that son. Now do this son. They were a pair. Let me tell you, they were cute as they could be. So that is my corgis. And this is the best picture I have of Lilybeth.
Okay. Bev, tell us about the Queen's corgis.
Okay, you can tell that I'm totally engrossed in my corgi children. So after Baron, I started watching the Queen on, I took Majesty magazine, one of those. And so anytime there were pictures of corgis, I get excited that the Queen had corgis. And then I started reading up on it. And she said that her corgis were her family. Well, I sort of felt the same way. They were my family. And so I sort of got interested in her through the corgis, actually. So I became I guess you call it an Anglophile. Yeah. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of her and with her corgis. This is a little girl, the Queen. This is a portrait that's in the National Portrait Gallery in London. This dog is named Susan. Susan was a corgi that was given to her when she was 18 years old and became the original breeder of all her corgis. She raised 5 decades of corgis, and she kept a lot of them. At one point, she had 13. And but anyway, and she gave quite a few away also. But this is Susan, who was her absolute favorite. Susan went with the Queen on her honeymoon. That tells you something. So this is a portrait. There she is with 3 of her corgis. This is their taking them on a trip. Whenever she traveled in England, these corgis went with her. I don't care if it was 10 or 12. They went with her. Another picture of her. And this is the corgis getting off the plane. Now you'll notice at the bottom you see one that doesn't look like a corgi and the one coming down with the long tail. That is a dorgie. And some of you probably, in the Queen's passing, they talked a lot about this, I think. The Queen's friend, one of her best friends, had a dachshund, and they decided to see what would happen. And that's what happened. They're called dorgies. And she loved the dorgies too. She also had labs. She trained labs. I just saw the other day where she was going out hunting, and she trained these dogs so well that these labs, if they can see her a mile away, will obey her command. So she's really quite the dog lover. Just to show you that the corgis are very prominent at Buckingham Palace. They managed to get into a lot of pictures. This is a rugby team that they were honoring at Buckingham Palace, and this one walks in. And they actually, if you do reading on it, they liked the corgis at Buckingham Palace when guests came because it thought the corgis made them relax. They, would pet the dog, and it would sort of calm people down that were pretty anxious to see the Queen. This is the last official picture of her, I think, with her own corgis. I think she's had some. She had a few. She stopped in the late 80s, and said she did not want to breed anymore because she was afraid the puppies would trip her up. So she did not breed anymore. But they were given to her, particularly when Philip died. They felt like her staff, and I think it was Andrew, gave her 2 corgis. One of them died within 4 months, and he got her another one. So she had still 2 corgis when she died. You probably saw them. They had them at the funeral.
Bev, tell us about your first trip to London.
Okay. Well, I did this needlework. Some of you have seen. This is Scandinavian cross stitch that I did. It took me a year to complete it. And after I completed it, I decided, well, heck, I'd like to go to England and see some of these places and this needlework. And I was having a dinner the very next week with some friends of mine, and one of the people there, he was pretty active in the Democratic Party. I didn't know it at the time, but he was. And so we were having dinner, and he said, I said something about I was going to go to England, and I was going to do it shortly. He said, we'll go with the Godspeed group. How many people know about the Godspeed that went to England? Anybody in here? Oh my gosh. We all know about the 3 ships in Jamestown. One of them is called the Godspeed. 1984, they decided that it was deteriorating, so they would reconstruct the Godspeed. In the process of doing that, they decided, wouldn't it be great to take it to England and let it come back just like the original Godspeed did? That was not a good thought. They forgot they didn't put a motor on it. Well, anyway, this friend of mine said, there's nobody, it's all legislators going. It was the governor. It was the governor's trip to England. They were all Democrats, I guess, in the General Assembly. I didn't know one from the other. And so they said, you just ought to go. So I called the travel agency, and the lady said, well, we're full right now. We put you on a waiting list, but if you have somebody else that you'd like to go with you, it might be easier. I couldn't quite understand that, but anyway, so I'm in my office in my nursing. I was teaching nursing at the time at J. Sarge, and my friend across the hall heard this. Next thing I know, she leaps into the room, and I mean leaps. She said, I'll go. I said, well, now there are 2 of us. And she got us immediately on the trip. There were over 200 people on this trip, and there we were, 2 or 3 of us. There was another couple that was there that had nothing to do with Jamestown Foundation or the General Assembly. It was really kind of weird. So anyway, I was on the voyage of the Godspeed. I became the official, unofficial photographer. And after I was on the trip, after one day, I had used all my film. So the Richmond Times-Dispatch gave me film for the rest of the trip. That was kind of neat. This is the Godspeed. When it was in dock, it was at St. Catherine's dock under security, so we couldn't go see it unless we went all together on a boat. But they were there. And we also went to a place in, I think it was Ipswich, up in northern England. Remember the needlework I just showed you? They had this little museum set up there, and we were all going through the museum, and I'm sitting there thinking, it looks like my needlework, and it is. It's the original pen and ink to my needlework. I said, I know I was supposed to be here. And I got so excited about it, I left my raincoat. So, of course, we all had to go to Burberry and buy a raincoat. There's a funny one on that one, too. Anyway, this is some of the crew. This is a crewman and his wife. This is the captain of our Godspeed and the captain of the boat that we were on to go see the Godspeed, and another crewman. And Prince Charles launched, when Queen Elizabeth, I was told it would be Queen Elizabeth, but Prince Charles came to launch the Godspeed. Flew his own helicopter in to this park. Is that where the Royal Naval College is? And he, did I get ahead of myself here? I'm still okay. And he came to launch it. This is kind of funny too. What he's saying right there is, he looks at all of us and he says, I know you've all been to Burberry. So yeah. And then he said, mine's a London fog. It was funny. You can barely see him getting on the Godspeed. He's getting on the Godspeed to tell the crew to have a great trip. And this is kind of neat. He was supposed to give a speech at the Royal Naval College immediately after he was on the Godspeed. That's why the Royal launch is over there to take him across. And he got so excited about the Godspeed that he missed a speech. The Godspeed had to be, since it did not have a motor, had to be pulled down this river to the ocean by rowers. There were 4 rowing teams that pulled the Godspeed down to the ocean where the wind, hopefully, would take it away. Well, that's another story, too. And so He missed his speech, but he said he had a great time with the Godspeed. And I just wanted to know, London Chuck Robb were with us. This friend of mine that went with me, during the time we were in London, I'm running down to Buckingham Palace to see what's going on. I'm looking for corgis and the Queen. Never saw her. Never saw a corgi. Anyway, my friend who went with me ended up on the Board of Health. So she's a little smarter than I was. Okay. Am I still okay?
Research about the man and his.
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
His research.
Yeah. So on the only free day we had, I went to Windsor, and Deanna went with me. And there was a guard at Windsor, sort of dressed like this, but not totally. And I had a picture of Baron, my corgi, with me. And so I was talking to him, and I said something about, I haven't seen a corgi since I've been in England. He said, they're all here at Windsor Castle. And he looked at the picture, and he said, I don't know why anybody would want one of those. They're an absolute nuisance. Well, that didn't sit well. And I was about ready to say something, but I kept my mouth shut. And so he said, well, I will tell you that if you send a picture of this corgi to the Queen, she will write to you. Now, that was in 1985. And as I'm walking away, and he said, by the way, my wife takes care of those corgis. They had been given a grace and favor house in Windsor. On the first floor was 13 corgis. She took care of them, and he took care of them. Now, I did read in getting ready for this that she died about, I think it's been 15 years now, 15 years ago. And he also said the Queen gave us a corgi. So they had their own corgi. And so anyway, when she died, the Queen broke protocol. And it's the only time that she went to the funeral of a servant. And after that, after she died, whenever the Queen was in Windsor, she would, and had time, she would go see this man and walk his corgi. And I was told, but I couldn't verify it at all, that she took that corgi back when he died. But I can't find it where that really happened. Okay, I think that's it for Windsor.
Did you ever send photos of your corgis to the Queen?
Yes, I did. But it took me 13 years to get up enough courage to send a photo to the Queen. And it was Biggs in Wellington. Well, at the time, we were giving our choir director a anniversary present. He'd been at the church for 30 years. And I thought it'd be kind of nice. I was on the committee to honor him. And I thought it'd kind of be nice if the Queen would congratulate him on his anniversary, because we were giving him a trip to England. And I thought that was pretty apropos. And so I remembered that business about writing to the Queen. So, well, I didn't write to the Queen. The corgis wrote to the Queen.
Okay.
And this is their letter. It's 2 pages. They talk about, they don't have a Range Rover, but they're very happy with their Nissan or whatever it was I had. And they didn't have silver bowls to eat out of, but they were very happy to be living with me. It was really kind of funny. But I did it. It's crazy. And I did it to send, and I couldn't figure out what to do. Oh, you're going to ask me that question?
Yeah, I want to ask you how you knew. Where do you send this letter? You're going to address the Queen.
So how do you send a package? This is a package now to the Queen. And they had sent a photograph album, which is on some of the pictures there at the back. And so I called Majesty Magazine. I had Majesty Magazine, and I knew that the photographer was Joe Little, and I called him. And I said, Mr. Little, I need to send a package to the Queen. Do you have any idea what's the best way to get it there? And he said, I think I'd address it Buckingham Palace. Crazy, isn't it? So I did. But the minute I sent it, the minute I put it in the mailbox, I knew she wasn't going to get it. And I said, oh, no, she's on holiday. She's at Balmoral Castle. She is never going to see this. So I just sort of forgot about it and thought, we're not going to get this to happen.
Did you finally get some response?
I did. 14 days later, I'll show you, this comes. Do you notice on the envelope it was Biggs and Wellington Beck, not totally, but the letter is handwritten. I'll read it to you. Dear Biggs and Wellington, the Queen has commanded me to thank you for your recent letter and the album of photographs and CD, we sent a CD of the choir, please, which you sent with it, which Her Majesty is pleased to accept. Now, if it ever says commanded me, she saw it. I found that out. The Queen was interested to read your letter and admired the handsome prints of you both on your headed notepaper within the album. And then it says, it was thoughtful of you to let Her Majesty know, I think this is funny, that of the 30th anniversary of the Minister of Music, Mr. E. Carl Freeman, at your mom's church, River Road Baptist Church, whilst the Queen appreciated your taking the time to write about this, I fear that it would not be in accordance with her normal custom to send a personal letter to him. Nonetheless, Her Majesty has asked me to send her best wishes to Mr. Freeman and hopes that the reception being held in his honor on the 11th of October is happy and a memorable one, or a memorable occasion. Yours sincerely, I have no idea what that girl's name is, the lady in waiting, I have no idea. But that, I nearly fell out. So we did.
Okay. All right. So that's how you handled the letter.
Yeah.
For Mr. Freeman's anniversary.
Yeah. This shows you at the occasion of Mr. Freeman's, Carl Freeman's anniversary, and that's me in the middle of the stage getting ready to read the letter from the Queen. I did not read the part about the court case. I only read the part about congratulating him. And a couple of people have said, oh no, Beverly's making that up. That was not made up. Am I going?
So what was your next encounter with the Queen?
Okay, I'm trying to think of what the next encounter was. She, I think that I always wanted to go, I think that's a birthday celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always wanted to go to the birthday celebration, which is the Trooping of the Color. I always thought that was the neatest thing. I love photography. And I was always hoping I could get a really good picture of the Queen. So anyway, so I called my friend Joe Little at Majesty Magazine again. And I said, I'm coming to England. I have a friend coming, Marion Miller, who's John Miller's mother, is going to meet me in London. I'm trying to find, she said, I'm going to England because I know I'll see the Queen if I go with you. So I said, I've got to find some places where the Queen is going to be. And he gave me about 3 or 4 places where she was going to be. And then he said, but you have to go to Windsor. I said, I'll be in Windsor. He said, but you got to be in Windsor for the state visit. I said, I'm not in Windsor for the state visit. He said, well, you go back to London and you take a train back to Windsor for the state visit. And so I called the hotel where I was supposed to stay in Windsor, and the guy said, oh, no, we have no room. So it's all booked by the press and all this stuff, you know. So when I actually got to England and got to Windsor, I just walked him to the desk and told the guy I needed to stay 2 more days. He said, fine. So that worked. And so that is one of the neatest experiences of my life. And if anybody, your children, your grandchildren, anybody ever want to go to England and see pomp and circumstance close up and personal, it's Windsor, and it's a state occasion. It takes 3 days to get this thing ready. It takes about 30 minutes for the whole thing to happen. It's really incredible. They practice at 3 a.m. in the morning. This is the household cavalry practicing in the afternoon. And it is just the most fabulous. It's just mind-boggling at how organized these people are and what they do. And on the day of the state visit was for the president of South Africa. And he, when a visiting head of state comes in, you notice the flag is up for South Africa and Britain. They meet the visiting person at the railway station in Windsor. You come out of Windsor Castle and you go down this huge hill, all the way down the hill to the train station. So in the preparation part, there are 5 bands that came in, 5 of these military bands. They go into the intersections along the way and they perform for an hour and a half, because that's how long it's going to take to get everything set up. So they perform for an hour and a half, and then you see, well, he's in charge, and I like him. Then here comes the Household Cavalry. They're going down there too. And next you see Philip and the Queen. They come out in her car. They're going down the hill to greet the visiting dignitary. This is how close you are. This is no telephoto on this lens. This is how close you are in Windsor. You can't even get the full car. You're so close to them unless you have a special wide-angle lens. Now, once they go down, they greet the visiting dignitary, and then they fire all these cannons off, and then they come back up, and they're coming at a fast trot. The Household Cavalry is literally almost flying up this hill. And then you see, there she is. You probably have had them out here before. There she is with the President of South Africa. And then here is Philip and the wife of the President of South Africa. There were about 5 more carriages, but I didn't want to bore you with carriages. And then this is I love this guy. He's cool, isn't he? And then this is the band's leaving. This is one of the bands that had come in earlier. And there's a guy who was in charge. Now, it also happened that, is the birthday so? Yeah. It also happened that Prince Philip's 80th birthday was at the same weekend. So what you're seeing here is everybody coming in Sunday morning to Windsor Castle to go to a church service at St. George's Chapel for his birthday celebration. They're all leaving, going back up the hill to the castle. This just shows you a bus. They bussed in family from Greece, and I don't know if they all bussed them in. They flew in and then bussed them over to the to the castle, from Greece and Germany. And I did get to see the program, but I couldn't find the picture I took of it. Anyway, so that's it.
You went to the Evensong at St. George's too.
Oh, did?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Which I think is
whenever I'm in anywhere, I usually go to the Evensong service, because I always feel like at Evensong you really get a flavor for the church and the people and so forth and so on. So I decided I would go that evening to the Evensong service at Prince George's Chapel. And what to my surprise, this is in the summer when usually there may not even be a boy choir there, and maybe 1-2 ministers at the most. Well, the entire service from the morning was repeated for the townspeople that night. And the Archbishop of Canterbury was there, full choirs were there, the boys' choir and everything. It was just absolutely fabulous. Said the same prayers, everything. I felt like I was there. It was just incredible.
Okay, now let's hear about the birthday celebration.
Okay, well, here's just a picture of Mary and I having tea, and this was actually a couple of days later, but I wanted you to see Marion. She met me in London. She was touring. She toured every year, about 6 weeks, and so she met me in London. And I told her, I said, do not unpack. We're going to see the Queen. So we go to a hotel where the official, President of South Africa was entertaining the entire royal family. So I thought, man, this is cool. And the only one that you could tell who it was is Princess Anne. That's her dress. And and then here comes the Queen and Philip. So, and we were so far away, it had to be 6 lanes of traffic. We were so far away. So I said to the guy, one of the guys, his security officer, I said, is there any way we can get closer to see the Queen? And he looked at me real funny. By this time, Miriam's backing up. And I said, well, we're from Richmond, Virginia, and she really wants to see the Queen. Is there a way we can do this? He gets on his earphone, and Mary is backing up further. She thinks we're going to be arrested, I think. And he gets off and he said, you see that Bobby over there, way over there, 6 lanes? I said, yeah, I see it. He said, why don't y'all just go over there and stand beside him and don't do anything? But except what he says. I said, come on, Mary. She did it. And you can't see anything because it's totally dark when they left. But that is the Queen's car leaving, and see how close we were to it. And you could literally, by the time they got to us, this is a good ways away from us. By the time they got to us, you could see her shoes in that car. They had lights on in the car. And so I think Mary was very happy. They didn't acknowledge us. They were having such a discussion. It was incredible, very lively discussion. That's all I'll say about it. And so anyway, she got up close and personal with the Queen. You like that, John? Yes. Anyway, so the next day was the birthday celebration. And this is the Queen Mother coming to the birthday celebration. It was her last official function before she died the next April. So we were fortunate. The interesting thing was, to me, was when she was coming, you heard you just heard the crowds yelling, screaming. I thought it was the Queen. It was her. It was the Queen Mother. The English just went ballistic over her. And so then after that, then the household cavalry comes in, and the drummer is beating the drums, and here he comes. He's beating the drum, then here comes Her Majesty. It's not really a good picture. That's why you need to be in Windsor. Can you see the difference in the ability to take pictures? It's really incredible. But the funny thing was, when we first got lined up, we were right on the front row. And I thought, we have gone to heaven. We were right here, Mary. It wasn't a half an hour before the parade started. It's a parade. They brought in 2,000 boys and Girl Scouts. There they are in front of us. It was okay. It was fine. And we could see the household cavalry and everybody and the troops on the grounds for the official trooping of the color. It's really quite a ceremony. If you ever know anybody who's going, they should go to the trooping of the color. You can go 2 weeks before the actual event. They are what's called dress rehearsals. They're perfect. You can get a seat. You have to have a raffle ticket to get in to see the trooping of the color on the actual day that the monarch is there. But a member of the royal family always stands in for the Queen or the King for the practice sessions. It rained at least 2 inches. And to show you how bad it was, it's in the Richmond paper. It was soaked, and it was. Instruments were ruined. The bearskin hats were soaked and ruined. They had to buy new bearskin hats for some of the soldiers and stuff like that. It was a downpour. However, before it was over, it stopped raining, and she's on her way back to Buckingham Palace. But if you notice, these are the royal family. The only one you can truly tell who it is Princess Anne because of her hat. The others, it's either Andrew or Edward or whoever, and Charles was way out in front. But look how heavy that hat is. We figured that hat must have weighed 40 pounds with all the water in it before he left. But anyway, that's the trooping of the color. And then you see, if you go anywhere to try to see anything, and then you go back to Buckingham Palace, that's all you see. You don't really get a great view of the royal family out on the balcony unless you just stood there for the whole thing. What was funny there was one of the horses threw one of the household cavalry, and the horse was just going up and down in front of Buckingham Palace. Nobody could catch the horse. It was so funny. Okay.
That was quite an exciting and eventful day. If you ever there for the trooping of the color, I was there. Luckily, I was able to see her on horseback, which, of course, that was a long time ago. But a wonderful event. So lucky to be able to share with Bev that experience. All right. That was quite an exciting and eventful day. And what happened next?
Okay. I was in London after a trip to the Netherlands with another nursing friend. And before I went, I mailed a package. Anybody know Tasha Tudor? How many in here? Anybody here know Tasha Tudor? Yeah. Okay. Tasha Tudor, she wrote a Corkyville Fair and a bunch of books, and all of it's about corgis, and it's children's books, and I thought it would be. I'd been to an exhibit in Williamsburg, and part of the exhibit was for Tasha Tudor. And I thought, well, what if the Queen knows about Tasha Tudor? I didn't know whether she knew or not. So I decided I had a couple books, and I would send her some Tasha Tudor books. Well, I mailed them. They cost a fortune. They came back. When I mailed the first package, it went straight, no problem. The second package with these Tasha Tudor books came back. During that time period, the palace had changed their rules. They would not accept a package unless they knew it was coming. So I didn't let them know it was coming. But anyway, so I had it with me. I just took it with me. I mean, it's a lot of money. I went down the drain, and she didn't get it. So I took the book with me when I went back to London, and I called the palace. Well, I called Mr. Little, and I said, I need to get this book to the Queen. I said, who do I talk to at the palace? He said, oh, just call the private secretary's office. So I did. The lady who answered, which I only realized 3 or 4 weeks ago, was Susan Husey, who was the Queen's #1 lady-in-waiting and her confidant. And so she answers the phone when I call. How could you ever? Anyway, so she answers the phone, and I tell her, I got this package, I got this book. Oh, bring it over to the county. She said, oh, bring it over to Buckingham Palace. I said, sure. Thinking I'd get into the palace. Well, I did, briefly. But anyway, while I had her on the phone, I said, my corgis wrote to the Queen. She said, I said, some people in my church thought that the Queen did not respond, but I think she did. And she said, what were their names? And I said, Biggs and Wellington. I am telling you, it took less than a minute. She's back on the phone. I got it right here. I said, what? And she said, we keep anything that the Queen responds to. And she said, I'm here to tell you that I happened to be on duty the morning that package came in, and there was no way she was going to miss that. Was that unbelievable? I couldn't believe it. So I went over to Buckingham Palace with my little package. The Bobby outside, he looked at me like I was an idiot. He said, yeah, you really want to take this to the Queen, this package. I said, yeah. They told me to bring it over here. So he said, wait just a minute. So he goes in, he comes back out, just come with me. And so when I went in, I don't know what she did. This guy comes out. He's dressed just like a top hat, a red jacket, white pants, and the black boots. And I'm sitting there totally like, oh my God, heavens. And he said, Madam, I'm here to take your gift to the Queen. Can you believe it? Those people are incredible. So that was that. Is that all of it?
All right. Yeah. Well, do you want to say anything about being delivered to the
you got to hear
hotels?
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. She's here to make me remember my story. After I left Buckingham Palace, I went to the Guards Chapel, which I highly recommend everybody see. It was bombed during the war. But anyway, so I went back to the hotel, and the desk clerk is there, and I walk in the door, and he said, oh, madam, the palace has been here. And I said, what? He said, I have a letter for you. I said, okay. Well, when they deliver mail from a palace, it's by carriage, horse and carriage. I'd give anything if I had been there to take a picture of that horse and carriage. But anyway, and it was a letter from Susan Hussey. Didn't say the Queen commanded me. She says, the Queen thanks you for, the Tasha Tudor book, da-da-da-da. And I had told her over the phone that Wellington was very ill. Last thing she said was, I hope that you will find Mr. Wellington in good stead when you return to Richmond, Virginia. Now, how many people would do that? Is that incredible? You can't help but love these people. Okay, that's it.
Okay. Bev, I know that this new event was the most exciting one. What about the walkabouts?
Yeah.
and probably something that a lot of people maybe shared with you on this one.
There she is. I was working after I retired from the community college, I started working for the Department of Health Professions. And my boss knew me, and she decided that I would work on a special project for the governor. So I was working on this project for the governor's office. And Governor came. So one day she comes in my office. Now, you probably remember that the Queen came to Jamestown in 2007. Okay. At that time, the only thing we knew about the Queen's visit was that she was going to Jamestown. Richmond was not in the picture at all. And so I decided that Jamestown is the most difficult place in the world to see anybody that you wanted, to really see up close. So I decided not to go to Jamestown. But anyway, so she walks in my office and she says, the governor has another project. Now, she's being funny. Has another project for you. And I said, really? And I wasn't very excited about it. And she said, he'd like for you to be a volunteer for the Queen's visit to Richmond. That's the first time I'd heard of Richmond. And she said they'll announce it in a week, but he wants you to do that. So I did. Well, I went to the volunteer meeting, and this picture is when the Queen is actually leaving the Capitol, but I just put it in here so you could see. My designated spot was about where I'm taking this picture, but it's about 30, 40 feet away from where the Queen might see you, but she would never speak to you at that point. So that morning, it was sort of rainy, and I decided I'm taking that picture of Lilibet with me, because Lilibet was named for the Queen. So I took the picture with me, and I got down to the check-in part, and the guy who is director of volunteers was yelling, and I mean yelling at this woman over the phone, telling her what was wrong with her, why wasn't she there, blah, 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 blah. I went on, and I kept thinking, I need to check in. And so when he hung up the phone, he marked her name off, and I saw where he marked it off, and I looked at it, and I said, I can do that. He said, go to it. All right? This is where I was. I was with the Governor Kane's children's schoolmates. Well, there was no way you were going to miss her when she came around. So there I am, I think it was about 20 or 30 feet from her at this point. That's a close-up picture of her. And there she comes. She's absolutely stunning. And there she's getting closer. This is the picture that I took of Lilibet, who's named for her. And there she is looking at the picture. Now, this is another volunteer took this picture, unfortunately sent it to me. But have you ever seen that expression? She was absolutely totally delighted to see that picture of Lilibet. Well, I said, oh, Your Majesty, her name is Lilibet in honor of you. And she didn't look like she either didn't hear me or didn't like it. So I just chose the fact that she didn't hear me. So I leaned over. When I leaned over, security is all over here, and they're coming from everywhere. And I said, oh, Your Majesty, her name is Lilibet in honor of you. And she said, oh, how lovely. Well, when she said, oh, how lovely, I lost it. She kept talking. I didn't know a word she said. And I couldn't even speak. So anyway, that was my chance to see the Queen. It was captured and I have a little story about this. It was captured by CBS. There she is talking to me, pointing her finger at Lilibet. John Miller, my buddy here, happened to be in Washington at a meeting, right, John? And he calls his mother and said, Mom, I think that's Beverly. She said, it is. So it was kind of fun that people not even there recognized that I was talking to the Queen.
What are some of your final thoughts? What are some of your final thoughts from your experiences, Beck?
All I'd have to say at this point is I think things were almost meant to be through that whole process. I just ended up with all of these weird things happening that really put me in the right spot, and I'm very grateful for that. But I really think that, you know, it's really quite something that any one of us in here could probably make an impact on a person like the Queen, who's the most famous person in the world. It's just weird how that can happen, but it can. And I'm very grateful that it happened to me, but I think it could happen to anybody because they're absolutely incredible. And I will have to say, you have to love these people. Susan Husey made it all possible because she liked the package. She knew the Queen, and she sent it to her. She made sure that she saw it. So you have to be very grateful to her. Now I'm going to say something because somebody is going to ask or say something about that. Susan Husey worked for the Queen for 60 years. She was her confidant. She was her number one lady in waiting. She just resigned a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, because she was accused of making a racist remark after the Queen died, which even Harry said she wasn't racist. And she still she is the godmother to Prince William. And he is the one who said, she really did need to resign, and she did. But it's just unfortunate that she lived to be 83 years old, never had anything like this happen in the 60 years that she was with the Queen. I felt really bad about that. Matter of fact, I'm writing a letter. Okay. Now, this just stuck us in. This was from her Jubilee. And I think that's the way England feels. It's the way a lot of us feel. And one more, I thought I had one more picture here, but I guess I don't. Somewhere in here there was a picture. Not of her. But anyway, that's my story. Hope you liked it.
I think you see why we wanted to share all this. We were sort of very, very proud that we could be in on this. And we said, this is good. More people need to know about your adventures, and especially with the corgis. So glad you were here and glad you enjoyed it.
And does anybody have any questions? Because I can come around with the microphone. Just raise your hand.
If you have more, I'll be in Camilla's at the bar.
And
you're welcome to come.
There's some show and tell in the back right corner, and there's some sweet treats in the back left corner. But before we adjourn, I do want to let you know that the next Who Knew for March will actually be on the second Wednesday, not the third. So it's going to be March 8th. And during that time, resident Susie Frazier will interview residents Marion and Cabell Chenault.
Okay.
The title of this exciting interview will be Different People, A Shared Life. So another must-see. But thank you all for being here, and a big thank you to Bev and Barbara and all the corgis. Have a great afternoon, everyone.